CHEM 2212, the Aldol condensation. This is a fairly straightforward reaction. We're going to be doing everything, all of our mixing and reacting in our 3 ml conical vial today. We're combining an unknown aldehyde with a ketone, in this case acetone, mixing it with ethanol and our sodium hydroxide, our 50% aqueous mixture. Let's go ahead and put everything into the reaction vial. We'll start out with our ethanol. Followed by our aldehyde. Our aldehyde, we're going to measure out 650 microliters using this micropipette. Okay. Then we'll measure out our acetone. Go ahead and cap up our aldehyde here. Acetone will be 100 microliters times 2, so 200 microliters total. There's 1. And there's 2. So we've got both of our carbonyl species in the reaction vessel with our ethanol, and then we're going to add our sodium hydroxide. 3 drops, and that's going to start our reaction. Okay, so 3 drops of our sodium hydroxide into our reaction vessel, and that will start the reaction for us. 1, 2, and 3. We'll go ahead and cap our vial and start shaking. Okay, we're going to get our reaction going here, so I'm just going to shake this for 15 minutes. But we're not going to make you watch 15 minutes worth of shaking. We'll come back once we're finished and take a look at our final product. Okay, we've been reacting for about 16 minutes, and as you can see, we've got some pale yellow powder, or pale yellow crystals that are formed inside the flask. Let me open this up, and you can see it a little bit more clearly here. So this is our impure product for the Aldol condensation. It's fairly straightforward, as we said before, very easy reaction. All the main components in, and then we just shake. We're going to collect this via suction filtration, and then we'll go through our washing and recrystallization procedures after that. So I'll set up my Buechner funnel here, just as we've done in the past. We're clamped, vacuum hose, neoprene adapter, Buechner funnel. Put in our filter paper. I'm going to use a small amount of DI water. This is what we're going to use to rinse out the vial. So I'll go ahead and place that in the Buechner funnel, and I'll turn on my vacuum. Now, it's going to be a little bit difficult for us to rinse this out. I'll tell you what I'm going to do. I'm going to try and measure this out as best I can, because one of our data points is how much water did we use to rinse out our crystals. So I'll pour in, that was about 1 milliliter of water. I'll shake it. And then I'm going to dump it into the Buechner funnel. Okay, we got a good amount of it out, but we still got some remaining in the vial, so we'll do the same step a second time. Until we get the majority of our crystals out. a total of 3 milliliters of DI water so far. Okay, we haven't gotten everything, so you'll see that there are still some crystals clinging tenaciously to the side of the vial, but we're going to leave that behind. That's going to be a possible source of error for us, so we want to mark that down on our data sheet and make sure we mention it in our lab report. So we've got our impure product. We're going to let that pull through for a second, and then we're going to start our DI water rinses. Okay, so we're taking a look back at our data sheet. We've got our unknown code. We've got the exact amounts of our aldehyde, or unknown aldehyde, 650 microliters, 200 microliters of our acetone. You'll use your densities to calculate the total weights and then the total moles of your starting materials. We have approximately 1.3 milliliters of our ethanolic solution. Reaction time 16 minutes, and then roughly 3 mils, or almost exactly 3 mils of DI water used to rinse the crystals into the butyl funnel. So the next step is to rinse our crystals and neutralize any remaining hydroxide that may be in our impure product. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to cut suction from our butyl funnel, turn off my vacuum line. I'm going to measure out 1 ml of DI water. And I'm going to pour that in on top of our crystals. Then I'm going to use my spatula, and I'm just going to try and chop up this large clump. I just want to get them spread out a little bit so that the next couple of washings that I do will neutralize as much of that remaining hydroxide as possible. It's obviously still very damp. All the crystals clinging together here. Okay, there we go. So that is 1 ml of our wash. Let's put in another milliliter. We're going to do this a total of 4 times. Crystals are starting to get a little bit more saturated, which is exactly what we want. There's our 3rd milliliter of water. And then our 4th. So I'm just shifting and moving these crystals around, trying to make sure that I don't break my filter paper. In our next step, we'll be taking the pH. Okay, so we've finished our DI water washings. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to pick up the butyl funnel. I'm going to test the water coming out of the tip of the funnel to see if it's acidic or basic or neutral. We hope it's neutral at this point. And that looks pretty good. I think we're ready to collect our impure product. We'll go ahead and draw the water through our crystals so we can get these things good and dry. And we'll let that go for a couple of minutes before we scrape it off onto our watch glass. Okay, so we've finished pulling air through our crystals. We're not going to dry them out completely because we're going to end up recrystallizing them in ethanol in just a second. So I'm going to go ahead and scrape these into our 100 ml beaker. You can see how nice the crystals are, nice canary yellow. Scrape down as much as I can, making sure that, again, I don't break the filter paper. We're using our powder funnel to make sure that we don't miss the beaker opening. Do one last scrape of our filter paper, try and get any remaining residual crystals. Okay, so there's our product, our crude product, prior to recrystallization. We'll go get our ethanol and get started on the next step. We're ready to recrystallize our impure product. We've got it in our 100 ml beaker. We've got warm ethanol on our hot plate. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take some of that warm ethanol, I'm going to measure it out in our graduated cylinder here so we know how much we're using. We'll always want to use a minimal amount, so I'll go in 1 ml increments so that we can stop as soon as we have dissolution. I'll take my spatula out and I'll use that to chop up the crystals if we need to in just a minute. 1 ml is not going to be enough. I think we knew that. Try another ml. Still going to require a little bit more. So that's 3 milliliters so far. I'm going to put this on the hot plate. We don't want it to cool down. We've still got a fair amount of crystal that hasn't gone into solution, so we'll do another milliliter. And I'm going to leave it there on the hot plate for the time being, and we'll just keep adding in one by one. Starting to get a little bit better for us here. We're going to let that heat for a second, see if we can't get those last few crystals into solution, and then we'll head to the ice bath. So all of our crystals dissolved into our ethanol. We've let it cool on the bench top for a couple of minutes, and now we're ready to put it into the ice bath to induce precipitation of our crystals. So we'll let that sit for a few minutes. I'll tilt it towards you here so you can see what's happening. We'll let that sit in the ice bath for a couple of minutes and wait for our crystals to precipitate, and then we'll go through our filtration process to get our final product. So we gave our solution here some time in the ice bath, and as you can see, we've got our crystals forming, and we're ready to filter our final product. So we'll move to we'll move over a couple of inches to our Buechner funnel setup here. We've already got the vacuum on. We're going to put a little bit of water here to wet the filter paper. We'll swirl our flask, and we'll go ahead and pour it in. We've got a very nice amount of product here. Pale, fine white crystals. I'm going to rinse out our recrystallization flask with a little bit of water just to get any remaining crystals, and then I'll pour it through. We'll do that a couple of times just to make sure we rinse any water-soluble impurities through our filtration setup. We'll let that continue to pull through for a couple of minutes, and then we'll get it ready for the oven. So we pulled air through our final product for a couple of minutes now, and it's nice and dry. We're going to go ahead and break our seal at the filter flask to release our vacuum, turn it off, and we'll go ahead and scrape our product onto our watch glass. We've got some very fine crystals, canary. Try and get everything that we can out of our Buechner funnel here. Get our best possible yield for this reaction. And I think that looks pretty good. Just going to chop these up a little bit, try and separate any clumps that we have. We'll take this over to the drying oven, set it in there for a couple minutes, and we'll be ready to weigh it. Okay, so we've placed our crystals in our drying oven. We're finished drying. We're going to take them out. And head over to the balance for our final weight. Tear our scale here. There we go. So our weight with our product and our watch glass is 29.144 grams. We're going to take this over and get a melting point of our final product, and then we'll do our final data sheet review. So here's our final data sheet for the Aldol condensation. We've added in a couple of data points, I think, from the last time we looked at it. We've got our volume of water used to neutralize, the volume of ethanol used to recrystallize. We've got our watch glass alone, our watch glass plus product, which gave us 299 milligrams worth of our product. We got our melting point value just a second ago, and that value is 108 to 109. Use that value to identify your unknown. Good luck writing up your lab report.